Right, so we're going deep today. Deep into the world of chemical coordination, right, in the human body. Hormones, basically. It's amazing. You've given me a bunch of research on this.
Yeah, it's a whole system.
And I'm already, excited to learn some new things.
It is. It is really cool stuff. And it's not just about, knowing what each hormone does, but, how they all work together.
Yeah.
It's like a finely tuned orchestra.
Oh, I like that.
Even a tiny little imbalance can throw the whole thing off.
Ooh, okay. I like that analogy. So let's zoom out for a second, right? Big picture. We know the nervous system is super fast communication.
Right.
Where does the endocrine system fit in? How does it work with that?
Okay, so think about it this way. Nervous system, like a text message.
Okay.
Short, direct, to the point. Endocrine system, more like a letter.
Oh.
Beautifully written.
Okay.
Long-term, sustained changes that keep the body running smoothly over time.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So we've got these glands, right? Producing these chemical messengers, hormones, they travel through the bloodstream. It's just crazy to me how these tiny little amounts can have such huge effect.
It really is.
On the body.
Yeah, and it's really specific, too.
Yeah.
It only affects the cells that have the right receptor.
So not a general broadcast, it's like a targeted...
Very targeted.
Delivery.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about these key players then. Endocrine glands. We've got this whole network.
Yes.
In our body.
Right. Think of them as control centers, each with their own specialty.
Okay, so break it down for me.
Okay, so we got the pituitary gland.
Yes, the master gland.
The master gland, at the base of the brain. It's like the CEO.
Okay.
It kind of directs a lot of the other glands.
Gotcha. And then there's the pineal gland.
Yes.
Also in the brain. That's the sleep one, right?
Exactly. That one produces melatonin, which helps regulate those circadian rhythms.
Like our internal clock.
Yeah.
Telling us when to sleep and wake up. Okay, so thank you, pineal gland, for a good night's sleep, hopefully. What about the thyroid gland?
The thyroid gland.
Yep.
That's in your neck.
Yeah.
It regulates metabolism.
Okay.
Produces hormones like T3 and T4.
Okay.
Which influence how our body uses energy, even things like red blood cell formation.
So that's why people, when they have thyroid issues, maybe they have weight changes or they feel sluggish.
Exactly. Yeah, those are very common symptoms.
Interesting. Okay, what about the parathyroid glands?
The parathyroid glands, they're right behind the thyroid. They control calcium levels in the blood.
So they're small but mighty.
Yeah.
What about the thymus?
Okay, so the thymus is in your chest, and it's it might be small,
okay,
but it's really important, especially when we're young, because it helps T cells mature.
Yeah, okay.
So that they can fight off those invaders, like a boot camp.
It's training the body's defense force.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I like that. Adrenal glands? I feel like those are always talked about with stress.
Yeah. They sit right on top of the kidneys.
Oh.
They're all about that stress response. They release adrenaline, which, kicks in when you're facing a threat, gets your heart pumping.
Right, gets you ready for action, that fight or flight.
Exactly, yeah. They're multitaskers, though, those adrenal glands.
Oh, no.
They also regulate things like salt and water balance, blood pressure, even some parts of metabolism. So they're like the little emergency response team, always ready.
Gotcha. Okay. So these glands have lots of jobs. I'm seeing a pattern here.
Yes.
Okay. Can't forget about the pancreas.
Yes, the pancreas, it's behind the stomach.
It took away.
And so it releases digestive enzymes.
Yeah, okay.
But it also has these clusters of cells called the islets of Langerhans.
Okay.
And those produce insulin and glucagon.
Yes.
Which keep our blood sugar levels balanced.
Right. So insulin helps the cells absorb glucose.
Right.
Glucagon raises it when it's too low.
Yeah, it's like a constant, like a tug of war.
Yes, to keep everything in check.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of these glands. We can't leave out the gonads, right?
Of course not. The gonads.
The testes in males.
Yes.
Ovaries in females.
Those are the superstars of sex hormone production.
Okay.
Testosterone, estrogen, which of course drives sexual development and reproduction.
So we have all of these different glands, all kind of working together, contributing to keeping the body in balance.
It's an orchestra.
Yeah. But what happens when things get out of whack? I want to zoom in on a couple of these. Growth hormone in particular.
Okay, so growth hormone is produced by the pituitary gland, and it's essential for growth.
Right.
It orchestrates the growth of bones and tissues, especially during childhood and adolescence. If you have too much during that time, it can lead to gigantism.
Right.
Too little, you can have dwarfism.
And then what about adults? Does it still play a role?
In adults, it helps maintain muscle mass and bone density. But if there's too much in adulthood, then you can get something called acromegaly, where the bones thicken, facial features can become more pronounced.
So it's important in all different life stages
Yes.
to have the right balance.
Hormone balance is important.
Okay. Let's go back to the thyroid. We talked about it, how it's involved in metabolism.
Yes.
But what happens when it goes wrong?
So the thyroid needs iodine
Okay.
to produce its hormones. If you don't get enough in your diet, you can get hypothyroidism,
Okay.
where the thyroid is underactive, which leads to fatigue, weight gain, you're cold all the time.
So something as simple as iodine
Right.
can really impact how this gland functions.
It can affect a lot of things, yeah.
What about the opposite? An overactive thyroid?
That's called hyperthyroidism.
Right.
That can lead to rapid heartbeat, weight loss, anxiety, even bulging eyes. A lot of times that's caused by Graves' disease.
What is that?
It's an autoimmune disorder where the body attacks the thyroid, causing it to overproduce hormones.
So whether it's overactive or underactive, the thyroid can really pull
Yeah.
things off. Okay, let's talk about insulin and glucagon.
Okay, yeah.
That dynamic duo. They're all about keeping the blood sugar balanced.
Yes. Insulin lowers blood sugar by allowing cells to absorb the glucose, and then glucagon raises it.
Right.
By telling the liver to release stored glucose. They work together like a dance,
Yes.
a very synchronized dance.
But sometimes that dance gets disrupted,
Yeah.
and then that's when you get into things like diabetes.
Yeah, so with diabetes, there are different types.
Right.
But they all involve problems with insulin. So type 1, the body's immune system attacks the insulin-producing cells.
Oh, wow.
So the body just can't make enough insulin.
Yeah.
And then with type 2, which is the most common, that develops when the body becomes resistant to the effects of insulin.
And both of those can lead to high blood sugar, which can have some pretty serious consequences.
Yeah, for sure. Uncontrolled diabetes can damage blood vessels, nerves, increases risk of heart disease, stroke, vision problems, even kidney problems.
So we've covered growth hormone,
Yes.
thyroid hormones.
Right.
That blood sugar balancing act with the insulin and glucagon.
Yeah.
What other hormonal, superstars are there?
Definitely adrenaline and noradrenaline,
Oh, yes.
produced by the adrenal medulla. Those are the fight or flight hormones.
Yeah, those are the ones that get us ready when there's a threat.
Exactly. It's like your body's alarm system. They trigger all those changes, heart rate, breathing speeds up, blood vessels constrict, your pupils dilate, you become more alert. It's like, okay, time to fight or run.
Right. It's amazing how the body just does that automatically.
Yes.
It's a pretty incredible survival mechanism. But I imagine, you don't want that activated all the time.
Yeah, it's definitely not good to be stressed all the time.
Okay. And then, of course, we have estrogen and testosterone.
Yes, those are key players in sexual development and reproduction.
Right. Those are the ones that we typically think of as like the puberty hormones.
Right.
Estrogen.
Estrogen is primarily produced by the ovaries. It drives the development of female secondary sex characteristics,
Right.
like breast development, the menstrual cycle,
Yeah.
and then testosterone that's produced by the testes. And it does the same for males. Muscle mass, facial hair, deeper voice.
But I thought those were exclusive.
No, that's a common misconception.
Oh, okay.
So both men and women produce both hormones.
And more about the balance
Yes,
than a strict separation.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay. So we've got all these glands, but then there's more,
there's more.
right? Because some organs also produce hormones.
They do.
So it's not just those endocrine glands.
It's not just the endocrine glands, no. So for example, the heart
What?
produces a hormone called atrial natriuretic factor, or ANF. It helps regulate blood pressure.
Wow. So it's not just pumping blood. It's like sending out
It's a multitasker.
signals to control blood flow as well.
Yes.
What about the kidneys?
The kidneys produce a hormone called erythropoietin,
Okay.
which stimulates red blood cell production.
Okay. It's amazing how everything is just so interconnected.
It really is. It's a beautiful system.
And it makes me wonder even more. How do these hormones actually work?
Yeah.
How do they do what they do?
Yeah, so we talked about them traveling through the bloodstream, targeting specific cells.
Right. They have their target.
Yeah.
But how do they...
So those receptors we talked about,
Yes.
they come in. So basically, the hormones are like keys.
Okay.
Each one has a unique shape
Oh.
that fits a specific lock, which is the receptor,
Okay.
on or in the target cells.
So it's all about finding that right fit.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's two main ways they act on their targets.
Okay.
So membrane-bound receptors, Those are on the surface of the cell.
Okay.
And when a hormone binds to one of those, it triggers all these events inside the cell.
Like a chain reaction.
Yeah, like a domino effect.
Okay.
And then you have intracellular receptors,
Yeah.
and those are located inside the cell,
Huh.
often in the nucleus. And hormones that bind to those, like steroid hormones, they can directly influence gene expression.
Oh.
They're like the conductor of the cell's orchestra. They're controlling which proteins are produced.
So they're really kind of controlling the cell's blueprint.
Yes.
So it's not just a quick message. They're actually influencing
They're making changes.
what the cell does.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, so we've done a good overview here of the endocrine system.
Yes.
We've met the key players,
Yeah.
all those glands, those hormones, learned how they work together. But we're not done, are we?
No, we're not done. We've just scratched the surface.
There's always more to learn.
There is.
I'm excited to dive in some more.
Me too. Welcome back. We've covered a lot of ground, but like we said, there's still so much more to explore.
I know, right? Last time we met all the players, the glands and hormones, but now I kind of want to know, how do they actually work? Like at the cellular level?
Like we've met the characters, but now we need to figure out what they're actually doing, right? Their motivations.
Exactly. So let's get into mechanisms then. We talked about receptors,
Yeah.
but how does a hormone binding to a receptor, how does that actually change the cell's behavior?
Okay, so it's kind of like a chain reaction,
Okay.
like a domino effect.
Oh.
Let's think about a protein hormone binding to a membrane-bound receptor. Remember, those are on the surface of the cell.
Yeah, like a message being delivered to the cell's front door.
Yeah, perfect. So the hormone itself, it doesn't actually enter the cell.
Oh, okay.
It more just sends a signal that triggers stuff to happen inside.
So like sending a message through an intermediary.
Exactly. And one of the most common intermediaries, they're called second messengers, is cyclic AMP.
CMP, okay, I'm writing this down. So what does that do then?
Okay, so think of it like the cell's internal alarm system.
Okay.
When a hormone binds to its receptor on the surface, it's like flipping a switch.
Okay.
That activates this AMP, and that sets off a whole cascade of reactions. That ultimately leads to the response, whatever that's supposed to be.
Okay, so the hormone is like the messenger bringing the news, and then CMP is like the town crier spreading the word.
Oh, I love that. A perfect way to visualize it. It's pretty amazing how this little molecule can make such big changes happen inside the cell.
It really is. Okay, so that's how protein hormones work with those membrane-bound receptors. But what about hormones that bind to the intracellular receptors? Those are inside the cell, right? Often in the nucleus.
Right. Those hormones, like steroid hormones, they're more direct. They're lipid-soluble, so they can actually just go right through the cell membrane, head straight for the nucleus.
So they bypass that whole second messenger system.
They do. They go right to the source where all the genetic information is.
Wow, okay. So what happens then?
Well, once they're in the nucleus, the hormone binds to its receptor, and that forms a complex that can interact directly with the DNA. It's like they have backstage passes to the control panel of the cell.
Wow, so they can actually turn genes on or off.
Exactly, and that's why they have such profound effects on the body. They're not just sending a quick message, they're actually changing the cell's blueprint.
Yeah.
They're changing which proteins get made, which changes the cell's behavior.
That's incredible. It really makes you appreciate how complex the human body is.
Yeah, and it gets even more complex when you realize that the endocrine system doesn't work alone. It's constantly talking to the nervous system.
Right, like we mentioned before. How do they actually work together?
Well, remember that fight or flight response?
Yeah.
Okay, so when we see danger, our brain, which is part of the nervous system, sends a signal to the adrenal glands. And that's what makes them release the stress hormones, adrenaline, and noradrenaline.
So the nervous system is like the first responder. It assesses the situation and then calls in the reinforcements.
That's a great way to think about it. And the communication goes both ways. So like hormones can also influence the nervous system. They can affect mood, cognition, even behavior.
So they're both influencing each other. It's like a feedback loop to try to maintain that balance.
Exactly. And you know what's really cool? There's actually another player that we're learning more about.
Another one. What is it?
The gut microbiome.
Wait, our gut bacteria?
Yeah.
They can influence our hormones. How does that even work?
It's a pretty new area of research, but basically it seems like our gut microbes can make hormone-like substances,
Oh, wow.
and those can interact with our endocrine system, and that can affect like metabolism, immune function, all sorts of things.
So what we eat, it not only affects our hormones directly, but also indirectly. because of what it does to our gut bacteria.
Exactly. It all comes back to that. It's a good reminder that our bodies are really complex and everything's interconnected.
It really is. Okay, so we know hormones are powerful. They do a lot of things to keep our bodies functioning. But what about behavior? I'm curious about that. You mentioned it before.
Yeah. That's such a fascinating area of study. And one of the coolest examples is the role of sex hormones. Think about puberty, all those changes that happen.
It's a roller coaster.
It really is, right? And it's not just physical changes. Those hormones are also affecting brain development, like the neural circuits. And that can lead to shifts in mood, social behavior, even how likely someone is to take risks.
So it's not just kids being rebellious. There's a real biological reason for it.
There is. And it's not just teenagers either. Hormonal fluctuations throughout life can affect mood and behavior. Like think about the menstrual cycle or menopause.
Right. It's amazing how these chemicals can affect our emotions, even our actions.
Yeah, it's like they're pulling strings behind the scenes, right? And we're only just starting to really understand how much influence they have. But research is showing that there are links between hormones and things like aggression, social bonding, how resilient we are to stress, even learning and memory.
So it's not just the basic stuff. It's affecting our personalities, how we are in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And it just really shows how important it is to understand our hormonal health, right? And to get help if things are out of balance.
Makes sense.
Because these imbalances, they can show up in a lot of ways. Like you could feel fatigue, mood swings, trouble sleeping, problems with digestion.
It's incredible when you think about it. These tiny little molecules can really have such a huge impact.
They can. It's pretty amazing. This whole deep dive has made me think about hormones in a whole new way.
Me too. But there's still more.
Right, there is, yeah. We've covered so much, but we still haven't talked about what we can do to support our hormones.
I'm ready to learn about that. What can we do to keep everything in balance? So, we've made it to the final part of our deep dive into hormones. It's been a wild ride, right? From those busy little glands to all the complex ways they talk to our cells.
Yeah, and last time we even talked about how our gut bacteria get in on the action. It's pretty amazing how these tiny messengers are running the show.
It really is. But okay, now I want to know, what can we actually do about it all? Are our hormones just, like, predetermined, or can we actually influence them?
Okay, so genetics definitely sets the stage, but our lifestyle choices, they play a huge role too.
Oh, okay, good. So it's not all set in stone.
Nope. Think of it this way. Our genes are like the sheet music, but it's our daily habits that are the musicians bringing that music to life.
Okay, I like that. So where do we even start? What are some things that affect our hormones?
Well, one of the biggest ones is, you guessed it, food. What we eat, it's like the building blocks for hormones, right? And it affects how well our endocrine glands actually work.
So it's not just about calories. It's about making sure we're getting the right stuff.
Exactly. Whole foods like fruits and veggies, lean protein, healthy fats. Those are the foundation for a happy endocrine system.
Okay, so eat the rainbow. What about specific nutrients? Are there any that are super important for hormones?
Yeah, definitely. Remember how we talked about iodine being crucial for the thyroid? You got to make sure you're getting enough of that. And then there's zinc, which is involved in testosterone production, and magnesium that helps with insulin sensitivity. See? It's all connected.
Wow. Okay, so what about things we should avoid? Are there any foods that can mess with our hormones?
Oh yeah, for sure. Sugar's a big one. Too much sugar can lead to insulin resistance, which throws off your blood sugar and increases the risk of type 2 diabetes. And then all those processed foods, artificial sweeteners, unhealthy fats, those can contribute to imbalances too.
So those tempting treats, they might be tasty, but they're not doing us any favors in the long run.
Nope, not really. Sticking to whole, unprocessed foods is the best way to go. But it's not just what we eat, right? Managing stress is super important too.
Yeah, because stress makes our adrenal glands pump out cortisol. And we know chronically high cortisol isn't good.
Right. It's like your alarm system's always going off. It disrupts other hormone systems, and it can affect everything. Your sleep, your energy, your mood, even digestion and reproductive health.
Oh, wow. So finding healthy ways to deal with stress, that's key.
It is. And there are so many different things you can try. Meditation, yoga, deep breathing, spending time in nature, listening to music. Just find what works for you and make it a regular thing.
Those are great tips. Okay, what about exercise? I know it's good for us overall, but does it specifically affect hormones?
Exercise is like magic for hormones. It helps with insulin sensitivity, lowers cortisol, and even gives you those feel-good endorphins.
So it's a win-win For our minds and our bodies.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be crazy intense workouts either. Even moderate stuff like walking, swimming, dancing, gardening, those all help. Just find something you enjoy and do it regularly.
Okay, so it's all about those healthy habits, right? Consistently making good choices. And of course, we can't forget about sleep.
Absolutely. Sleep is super important for hormone production. When we sleep, our bodies repair and regenerate, and that includes making hormones.
I know I feel terrible when I don't get enough sleep, but what's actually happening with my hormones?
Well, for example, growth hormone is mostly released during deep sleep. So if you're not sleeping enough, you miss out on that boost. And that can affect muscle repair, growth, metabolism, even how well your brain works.
So good night's sleep is like giving our hormones time to recharge and do their thing.
Exactly. And not getting enough sleep can mess up other hormones too, like cortisol, insulin, even those hunger hormones, leptin and ghrelin. And then that can lead to cravings, weight gain, all sorts of problems.
Yeah, when I'm tired, I just want to eat everything in sight, especially sugary stuff.
It's super common. It's like your body's looking for a quick energy fix. That's why sleep is so important for keeping everything in balance.
Wow. This deep dive has been amazing. We've learned so much about how hormones work and how much power we have to influence them.
It has been a fascinating journey, hasn't it? It's empowering to realize that we're not just at the mercy of our hormones. We can actually take charge of our hormonal health.
That's a great point. So as we wrap up, what's the one thing you hope listeners will take away from all this?
I think the biggest takeaway is this. Our bodies are these incredible interconnected systems. And the endocrine system, with all those hormones, it's a vital part of that balance. By understanding how it all works and making choices to support it, we can truly thrive. We can have more energy, better moods, and just feel better overall.
That's such an important message. So on that note, I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of hormones. Remember to keep those minds curious, those bodies thriving, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.